Well, I want to welcome everybody to our second roundtable here at Mark Twain Lake Fishing Intel here at the Junction. I think we all agree we had a great meal here.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's real good.
What'd you have, Eric?
I had the catfish. It was real good. No, regular old cheeseburger.
Burger?
Yeah, went way out.
Way out. And I had a Philly cheesesteak.
A tenderloin.
Hard to beat it. And I know Ken's here a lot during the week, and he's going to go over the specials that they have here at the Junction.
If you haven't been here, folks, you need to stop in here and get a good dinner. They got specials every night. Monday night, catfish, all you can eat. Tuesday night, taco night. Wednesday night, tremendous prime rib. Thursday night, half-price appetizers. Friday night, they give you a plate and a half of cold boiled shrimp. And I mean, they say it's a pound, it's closer to 2 pounds than it is a pound. And I'm gonna skip Saturday, but if you don't know about the roast beef on Sunday, you're really missing out. Sunday afternoon, the roast beef special, you better be here by 12 o'clock because they sell out by 12:30. It's that good.
Cool. So, much appreciated to the Junction for hosting us here at our roundtables every month. And 154 Marine is our title sponsor. Here for the roundtables, they're your Skeeter, Excel, and Manitou boat dealer here in Perry, Missouri, out on 154 Highway west of town. And top-notch service, great people. If you're in the area, something happens to your boat, don't be afraid to take it in there. They'll, Sonny, Charlie, Corey, and Matthew will get you taken care of. So, tonight we're just going to kind of go over, we're in the, into September right now. We're going to talk about the fall transition.
Almost October.
Almost October, yeah. So we're going to get into the fall bass fishing, fall crappie fishing. Let me introduce everybody real quick. We got bass tournament angler Eric Power here. We got Keith Hendricks, another tournament angler. He's new to the show. He's on the Intel team along with Eric.
Rookie.
Yeah, he's not a rookie. So he's won numerous tournaments here on Mark Twain. So, Keith finishes in the money in a lot of tournaments here on Mark Twain, and I'm glad to have him on the Intel team in here tonight. And we got Ken Erb, crappie guide here on Mark Twain Lake, chauffeur guide service. Then we got Dennis Lawrenson Jr. from Northeast Missouri Angler. If you guys haven't checked his YouTube channel out, check it out. Northeast Missouri Angler. He's crappie fishes a lot, and then he does a little catfish guiding. And we're obviously going to add catfish to the Intel team this spring coming up when the catfish get running again.
Yeah, it's tailing off right now. So better just to wait and start fresh in the spring.
Yeah, you do a lot of you had a lot of catfish.
I do. Of course, I mainly crappie fish from usually sometime in September when it starts tailing off on the catfish end. I usually pick up the crappie ride until it freezes, and then usually crappie fish again until the water starts getting into the 50s. Once it gets into the 50s, then I kind of start finding where the big blue cats are. They tend to me, the best chance to catch a big blue at Mark Twain is in the spring, once that water temperature reaches about 52 to about 60 degrees. And that's the best time to catch, if you're going after the big ones, that's the best time really, in my opinion, to catch them. You can catch them all summer, but they seem like they're waking up from that winter. They go dormant in the winter here. They're not like they are even down like the Ozarks, they're active year-round. The blues actually go dormant here. If there's ice on that water, they're dormant. Once that water gets below 40, they really slow down. But once that water gets about 50 in the spring, they wake up, they start feeding, and they feed real good, the big ones, until it reaches about 62 to 65 degrees, and then everything else is waking up. They tend to go deeper when everything else is starting to, the flatheads are starting to show signs of life. The channel kelpite year-round, but they really turn on then. And then they'll move into the deeper waters and holes until nighttime, and then they'll come up on the flats a lot of times and feed. And then right up until spawn, usually about the time they spawn, about 3 weeks before the spawn starts, about the time crappie spawn ends. From there until they start spawning, usually it's into the first week of June to the end of the first week of of June, they start spawning, and then I'll just crappie fish until the spawn's over, which is usually about a month. And then from that time that spawn ends until about Labor Day weekend, you can't beat the nighttime flat fishing, dragging baits on the flats and catch them. I mean, you just hammer them. And they come off the beds, they're hungry, everything's feeding. It isn't uncommon. I had 2 trips this year, we caught over 30 fish in 6 hours.
Wow.
You know, the numbers are there. Spring, big fish, not necessarily numbers. After the spawn, you're gonna catch numbers with the occasional. I had one 37-pounder for the end of the second week of July. That was the biggest fish a client caught this year. I had multiple 30-pounders in the spring with a lot of them over 25. In that 26 to 28 pound range, several of those in the spring. And then throughout the summer, after spawn, tons of 20 to 25 pound, you know, probably we caught 22 when I looked, total fish over 20 pounds, but under 25. And the channel cats, we were ridiculous. We were catching 8, 9 pound channel cats in August.
I'm just curious, what do you do to catch them fish as far as bait wise and rig setup?
My main setup I use is kind of like a Carolina rig. You use with a worm, you know. You got your leader, your hook at the bottom. About 6 inches up from the hook, I use a peg float, either 2.5 or 3 inch peg float. Some guys like demon dragons. That's fine if you want to spend $10 for 3 floats, go ahead.
So you're trying to keep that bait up off the
The object of that is so the bait floats off the bottom. I usually use a 3-foot long leader. And I got the hook, and I don't use anything smaller than an 8-aught hook. Catfish is, if it'll.
How big a worm can you put on an 8-aught?
I don't even use one. I use worms to catch my bait if I'm using bluegills. But for big fish, like for a shad, it's 6, 7 inches long. I'll cut that in 3 pieces and throw the tail off. So I got 2 pieces of bait on average. That's for smaller, that's for just to catch fish. Don't matter what size. A 2-pound channel cat will eat that in a heartbeat. Big fit in his mouth, he'll go for it. Where you run into problems, if you want to eliminate those fish, you only want big ones, and I switch to a 12-aught hook. And I switch to that 6-inch bait. I'll cut about that much off of his end of his tail. I'll scale him, and I'll fillet it to the gut pocket on each side of the spine, and cut the spine out. And when you hook it, you just hook it through his nose, right up to the top of his snout, on a 12-aught hook.
You just go down to Ace Hardware and buy the weed eater line?
No, I only use 40 or 60-pound line.
That's all you use. That's all you use, huh?
Well, what I go after eats what.
Yeah, each what we're fishing for.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I understand.
A big 30-pound flathead will eat a 5-pound bass in a heartbeat.
I understand.
And a
I've
30-pound
seen
crappie.
Yeah.
I wish they wouldn't, but they will.
Yeah.
But no, like I said, I use a 3-foot-long leader, hook about 6 inches. I usually go the width of my hand, and then put my peg float. And above that, I use a line rattle, and then tie it to a 3-way swivel, and either clip on a dragging sinker. You know what a dragging sinker is? They're a sinker that's long, about big around your little finger, but they're usually around 11 inches to a foot long, depending on how heavy they are. I use a 2-ounce out the lake most of the time. If there's running water coming in one of the arms, and I'm fishing that running water and want to drag, I'll use a 4-ounce if I'm using a bait the size of my fist. But
Now, are you moving around out there with a trolling motor?
yes,
Is that what you're doing? Dragging
that
across
or
the-
using the wind and using drift stocks. I mainly drag, but I do anchor nose into the bank like a lot of people, tie it to a tree. And I have talon on my boat. I drop talons down, not mess with anchors as long as it's shallow enough. But
That's
mainly what I
interesting that you would move along like that.
a lot of people,
Catch those
they just
fish.
started doing it here. I put out the videos. I started making the weights for myself because you couldn't buy them nowhere around here. And it's a DL Sinker snake weight drag weights. Selling it.
Funny corner.
Hobby Hut, Hunt Corner has them. Camden, general store has them. But 2 and 4 ounces is what I make. I use the 4 ounces mainly when I fish in Mississippi because the current, you got to have it. And I use bigger baits there, bigger fish in the river. And when I go to the river, I'm after monsters. I don't care about 5 pounds. I want 50 and up. And I usually take snag a couple Asian carp or get them in the throw net about that long. Cut it right at the beginning of the gut pocket, and I'll put a 12-aught hook in his nose. I'll put another one in the back. Pitch it out there.
It ain't getting off.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there's
I'm
enough of
after
those
something that's
out
got a
there.
mouth on him about that wide. He's gonna be about that big around. It's an all or nothing trip when I go there. Either catch a big one or I don't catch nothing all that. But no, you put that weight on there and you cast that behind the boat. I got a rod rack on the back like a lot of catfish boats have. And then I usually only use 4 rods. Sometimes I'll use 6, but mainly 4. Put 2 out the back and I put 2 on planer boards. If you've never used planer boards, it's pretty simple to learn how to use them. But one thing about dragging on Mark Twain, it has a lot of trees and brush. I suggest not using them the first time and just using 4 rods. But when you do that, and you got your rods out the back, the 2 on the ends, put them out the farthest and stag them. Meaning one's here and one's here, boat's down here. And then the 2 in the middle, you want to stagger them closer to the boat. That way, when you make turns, don't just turn real sharp, make long, gradual turns. That way, when the lines do this behind the boat, when you turn, they don't get all jumbled up, tangled up and everything. When you straight back out, they'll go back straight. And 9 times out of 10, when you first start dragging, you're going to spend some time before you catch your first one because you're going to think I'm doing something wrong, blah, blah, blah. But the good rule of thumb is when you drag and cast them out, good rule of thumb is stay under a half mile an hour. All times. You can never go too slow, but you can go too fast. Another good rule of thumb is wherever the water temperature is, put a decimal point in front of it. Don't go no faster than that. Meaning if you're dragging and it's 45-degree water temperature, don't go over 4.5 mile or 0.45 mile an hour. You want to slow it down. I usually don't start dragging until the water gets into the 70s and 80s in the summer. In the spring, I usually anchor fish or nose into the bank, tie it to a tree line, something like that. I target structure more than I target area.
Yeah. So you're not seeing them like on a side scan or?
In the summer, like when I'm dragging, I use live scope and I put it in perspective mode because I'm pulling. We caught 37-pounder came in 3 foot of water. You know, we caught multiple 20 pounds in 9.
Yeah. Well,
Not even a
that's
foot.
probably how some of us bass fishermen run into one of those bigger catfish, in that shallow water we're flipping or so in the spring.
Especially early morning, late
Stick one.
evening.
Usually you stick him and that's the last you
See of a $10
You know what it
bug, yeah.
was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, mostly, I love to do the drag. And if you've never done it before and you go with somebody that does it and you catch anything at all, it's completely different than anchor up fishing when they hit. You go out, everybody's went catfishing, either on the bank or somebody boat. You throw it out, you just tap, tap, tap. Tap, 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 tap. That's all you see. Well, when you're dragging, you're only catching actively feeding fish. So when they grab it, they're smoking it. A 3-pound channel cat will strip drag out of them big ambassador reels I have when they hit. I mean, they bury rods. I've had clients, they practically fall out of the boat because they're sitting back on the back, all of a sudden the rod just bends all the way over. And of course they jump up and real fast, and try to grab the rod. Well, they can't get the rod holder. They can't get out of the rod holder anyway because he's got it buried. There's too much pressure.
Yeah.
So and I use circle hooks that hook yourself. You don't have to do no yanking and any of that. It's actually lazy not to mess with. You don't have to mess with anchors. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Is
I had to
that
try that
you
sometime.
cast it out and you just sit here with your wireless trolling motor, watch the graph. Live scope on the perspective mode. You put it out there about 60 foot, and it's an area, like this, 60 foot all the way around. So as you're moving, you're not going lightning speed. I like pulling, my favorite speeds around 0.35 to 0.4, all times. And you can see a group of, 30 fish. You can tell how long they are, roughly. And if it's a big cat, he's 4 foot long, you can see his fins. It's a catfish, and you got time to move the boat and go over it and drag her on top. And you'll run into a group. The funnest thing is to run into a group where channel cat are school fish. They'll stay schooled up year round. Blue cats, you might find 2 or 3 together, but for the most part, they're solitary. And flatheads are hiding in stumps, brush, and whatnot, and they're usually by themselves. They usually don't run in packs. Sometimes smaller ones, 5, 7 pounds, will be together running around. If it's 20, 30 pounder, he's probably all by himself.
No, but curious, what about depth wise? You know, you're using that perspective mode, as you typically